Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 108 of the 476ers podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Game 6 of the finals. Stay tuned.
Yo, uh, yo. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my mind.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 108, the season finale of the NBA season. And what a great season. I think, it was a good season. I think it was a good season. Even as a Sixers fan, I think it's easy to look at it and see it as a disappointment. And in a lot of ways it is. I still stand by, I think that we probably, this was a season where we didn't probably really pay attention to the game by game and kind of what was happening, because I think if we did, we would have kind of known sooner that our team was, it's just a little overrated. You know what I mean? We were just a little overrated. We took advantage of a lot of situations. We ended up playing a lot of teams at the right time and, kind of took advantage of that. And then when the playoffs came, we got exposed. I'm not to continue pointing out, but, I'd said how many times, it's just that after that, when we played the Raptors and we played the Heat, it was obvious, our offense was so damn predictable and so easy to stop that, it was a scary situation. And I had also said to be, not to blow myself or, toot my own horn, as they say, toot toot. But I had said that after the Bucks Nets game towards the end of the season, was that game where I think KD scored 44 or something and Giannis scored 47, something like that. And I had said, kind of watch out for this Bucks team. If it's not the Nets, I think it's the Bucks. And a lot of people laughed me off the reservation. Oh, the Bucks can't beat us. They're not good. They were inconsistent. I could understand why. But I just thought that there was a different thing to Giannis. It's like a different view. There's like this different plateau that a player hits where it had almost hit this point where the Bucks were kind of no longer, what a lot of great teams realize, a lot of great players realize, the regular season is not that important. It's important, and there are things that matter about it, but if he had the MVPs, the All-Stars, none of that mattered, right? So he's here for this championship. And it seemed like the team was marching to that drum. You know what I mean? And they had said, we're kind of experimenting and, whatever. We're not really worried about the regular season. And they were right. They were right. Now, listen, obviously we could sit here and relitigate, what happened and play the Nets and injuries and all that. But the thing is I can't, you see, like putting an asterisk on last year. One, I think I am less willing to put asterisks than some people are. I think some people will put asterisks for everything. You know what I mean? And I don't necessarily completely agree with that. And last year, I only added the asterisk to last year because of retrospect, because the Heat got swept in the first round of the playoffs this year. The Lakers lose. And the thing is, right, it's injuries. But the problem is, well, if you looked at AD's career leading up to this year, he's always injured. I mean, he's constantly injured. He's injury prone. He's always injured because of the nature of the bubble. The NBA suspended for 3 months or whatever it was. Was it three? Yeah, over 3 months, 3 or 4 months. And then they come back. And yeah, everyone's healthy now. And here's AD healthy. You get him into the playoffs and now things go well. Right. Well, this was a typical regular season for him. He's always injured. So, I think now looking back at it, yeah, you can put an asterisk on. I'm not going to take away LeBron's title or use it in an argument against MJ or, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, there should be an asterisk on it. There needs to be context to understand exactly what happened. But once you start adding asterisks for injuries, then you're going to litigate, so are we going to take away Kawhi's championship with the Raptors? Do we have to add an asterisk to that? I had gotten to an argument with somebody on Instagram one time, somewhat recently, because, somebody posted something stupid about LeBron never had help winning a championship. He didn't even have help in the game when they came back. I was at 2014 against the Warriors, and I'm like, well, one, there was help. He had Kyrie. He also wanted Kyrie and Kevin Love on that team, and people seem to have completely forgotten what Minnesota Timberwolves Kevin Love was, because Minnesota Timberwolves Kevin Love was a 40-20. You know what I mean? It was 40 points, 20 rebounds. He was putting up numbers that were Wilt-like. And when he played with LeBron, I long said LeBron doesn't gel well with power forwards like that. You know what I mean? Because they end up just, relegated to a corner. You know what I mean? So, well, obviously didn't work out, whatever. He wanted him on his team. He was somebody that was really, really fucking good. And then to completely forget and to completely take away that Draymond gets suspended for a game and a half in that series, that Andrew Bogut gets injured, it changes the entire complexion of that series, just completely changes how that series goes. You know what I mean? And credit to LeBron, you only play who's in front of you. So I'm not going to give an asterisk to that championship. LeBron won that. It's a great championship, great win for him. I'm not going to asterisk it. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But adding context to the story is important, because if you're debating who the greats are, you need to add an asterisk. Just like people are going to, you need to add context. Just like people spend time trying to tear down MJ. Oh, MJ only played this amount of Hall of Famers. LeBron's played this amount of Hall of Famers. Again, like I keep saying, I mean, this Hall of Fame thing, because one day I had said yesterday, right, to the homie Vic, how funny is it going to be when the Bucks win this championship and now Brook Lopez ends up in the Hall of Fame, right? And I assure you, there's an outside chance of it. So now you'll have Drew in the Hall of Fame. He'll be in the Hall of Fame. Brook Lopez will be in the Hall of Fame. Chris Middleton eventually will be in the Hall of Fame. And Giannis is going to be in the Hall of Fame. So one day people are going to run back and say, I mean, look at this Bucks team. They had 4 Hall of Famers. They were stacked. The Nets only had 3 Hall of Famers. And they're going to think that's a legitimate argument. You know what I mean? They're going to think that's a legitimate story. And it's not. Because getting into the Hall of Fame is mad easy. You know what I mean? It's mad easy and confusing because Chris Webber's not in the Hall of Fame. It doesn't really make sense. Even I don't even like Chris Webber, but, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't even think a lot of people deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Mutombo went in the Hall of Fame. I couldn't believe it. But Mutombo, Ben Wallace is now a Hall of Famer? For what? For what? Not to take anything away from them. I'm sorry. Anyway. So I'm not going to add an asterisk to this. You know what I mean? One of the 3 best players in the NBA won a championship this year. He earned it. He earned it. Chris Paul was one of the top 3 vote getters in MVP. He earned getting them there. This Suns team, they went 8-0 in the bubble. No one knew what to do with it, rightfully so. They make a couple signings. DeAndre Ayton takes a step. They earned it. They earned it. AD got injured. He always does. Kawhi got injured. Another one, always does. The one that's really surprising is James Harden. James Harden never gets injured. So that one is, James Harden got injured. The thing is, it's fine to say that because he never gets injured. However, it's not fine to act like he didn't come in 30 pounds overweight and then hurt his hamstring. Now you can go ahead and say, well, the argument really would be that a lot of players thought the NBA, they thought the season was going to start, 2-3 months later than it actually did. That's fine. I would go and say, well, that doesn't mean they should be just out of shape, I would think. And 2, he purposely came in heavy because he wanted to force his way out of Houston. And he did exactly that, ends up hurting his hamstring. Yeah, well, you're out of shape. You know what I mean? Kyrie got injured. Always does. Yeah, he always gets injured. You know what I mean? So a lot of guys, Joel, this argument about the MVP this year is the MVP who just is an MVP of attrition. Whoever could make it through the rigors of the season won the MVP. Okay, but his biggest competition was Joel, who's injured all the time. Steph, who was on a team that didn't make it to the playoffs again, right? I mean, he made it into the whatchamacallit, to the playing tournament, but they didn't make it to the playoffs. So, right. How many MVPs do you want to see? Not if we're gonna sit here and say, oh, Chris Paul is showing this MVP award don't mean shit because they just beat the Nuggets. Well, then we can't go back and now say Steph is the MVP if he didn't even make it to the playoffs, can we? Right? Okay. LeBron had an argument. He hurt his ankle for the first time in his life. It's a sprained ankle. I could see how that has to do with fatigue. The thing is to act like fatigue plays more of a factor here than the fact that LeBron had played in 37 different finals already since the game had been erected by James Naismith somewhere. LeBron James was in the finals. You know what I mean? Kang the Conqueror of the NBA Finals. He's been in all of the finals. And all of the finals have been rigorous. It's 6-7 games. They're all difficult. You know what I mean? So now this time he's fatigued, but those times, or maybe he just got older and he got fatigued. It's possible, and he hurt his ankle. I think that's fair. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna asterisk it for that, though. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna asterisk Joker's MVP because it takes away from the fact that Joker had an incredible season. They lost their second best player. It didn't miss a beat. It only showed in the playoffs when they needed guard play. And they couldn't get it. Joker deserved the MVP. He earned it. You know what I mean? Joel was injured often. He often is, unfortunately. So we talk about we're here to game 6 of the finals now, with all of that said. And the truth of the matter is, to have watched that game, and if you walked away from that game thinking that you need to put an asterisk on this finals after Giannis puts up a 50-point burger in the fucking closeout game, the most difficult game in the NBA is the closeout game. It's the hardest game. It's the hardest game. It's the hardest category of games. And then under that category, you have like the game 7 closeout and the game 6 closeout, and then game 5. You know what I mean? Game 4 and game 5 are kind of even depending on where the series is. Game 5 of a 2-2 finals. Game 5 is going to be difficult. Game 4 of a 2-1 is very, very fucking difficult. You know what I mean? Even if a 3-0 is difficult because of pride and all that. But in a closeout game, to come out where your teammates aren't really playing well in the first half, Drew and Chris are a combined like 3 of 20 or some crazy, some really ridiculous number. They are absolutely abysmal in the first half. They go into the half down, I think down 5 or whatever. And then in the second half, Giannis, all he does was the first time he did it was historic, scoring 20 points in the third quarter. He decides to do it a second time now. The amount of guys who've done that can be counted on one hand, who've done it once. And now Giannis goes and does it twice in the fucking finals. 2 different quarters, 20 points in each quarter, then 13 in the third. 13 in the fourth quarter. And incredible. Not only that, you can't write a more ironic. Alanis Morissette couldn't give you a more ironic situation here than to sit here and see Giannis, even though, don't get me started on Isn't It Ironic. It's not a goddamn ironic thing in that song. There's nothing ironic in the song. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just using it as a analogy, metaphor, whatever. You can't write a more like analogical thing. I don't even know if that's a word, but I just made it. Sounded good. It sure sounded good. Analogical. I may make a podcast called Analogical where I just talk about things. That's a great idea. Actually, I'm going to write that down. I'm not going to write it down now. I'm going to write it down after I forget, because I'm going to forget. And then I'm going to write it down later when I remember that I forgot. When I watch this back and I'm like, oh shit, that's right. I wanted to write that down. Anyway, you couldn't write a more analogical thing. Check me out. Than the playoffs being flagged by fans counting Giannis down at the free throw line for taking too long at the free throw line, starting in round 1 with the Heat, with this gamesmanship bullshit, which is nonsense. Gamesmanship, to me, when people say gamesmanship sometimes, they say it as a way to like make an excuse up for cheating. What's gamesmanship? No, you're trying to get one up on. You're trying to get one over. You're not really trying to win head up. You're gaming this, your gamesmanship bullshit as if it's some honorable thing. It's not honorable. It's corny. Fuck gamesmanship. You know what I mean? Fuck gamesmanship. Anyway. Because now I'm about to talk about my basketball experience. My Division IV AAA basketball experience. So for these playoffs to be almost marred, because I thought it was fucking cringy as shit. Everywhere you go, every time they're on the road, you got people counting down the free throws. I actually thought that towards the end, it was actually kind of helping Giannis because he was almost using it, getting into rhythm. You know what I mean? It was like he would do his thing, 9, 10, shoot now. You know what I mean? It's almost what it felt like towards the end. Regardless, there's nothing, you can't write a more sweeter ending than to have Giannis go 17 for 19 from the free throw line in the closeout game. All that bullshit, all that gamesmanship. And my man drives a stake into the heart of the sun. My man eclipses the sun by going 17 for 19. 5 blocks. I mean, this series is marked by the defense. You know what I mean? When they look back at the most memorable moments of this series, you're going to have Chris Paul, just flexing in game 1 kind of. You're going to have Devin Booker, what was that, game 4 or game 5, when, he's going off for 40, scores 40 back-to-back. Game 4 and 5, actually, scores 40 points back-to-back. And you're going to have Giannis chase down blocks, Giannis blocking DeAndre Ayton, Drew stealing the ball at the end of game 5 from Devin Booker, Drew stealing the ball from Devin Booker here in the third quarter of game 6 with just a head-up play. You know what I mean? Just understanding. The understanding, because that's what defense is. That's the thing, is what people don't understand about defense. Defense isn't just effort. You know what I mean? That is a big part of it. Wanting to be a good defender takes effort, right? The other part of defense is it's a chess game. You know what I mean? This is a chess game. At this level, it's a chess game. So Drew understanding that he's closing out on Devin, betting that Devin is assuming he's closing out of control and that he'll be able to pump and go against Drew's momentum, right? Because Drew is running right, so his momentum is carrying him this way. Devin is saying, I'm going to pump and go back towards him, around him, where his momentum is going to take him out of the picture. And Drew accounting for that, essentially rebalancing himself, getting in front of that, and stealing the ball. I mean, it's just genius defense. You know what I mean? A great defensive play. Again, Drew is the defender that Sixers fans think Ben is. I've been saying that. He is a defender that Sixers fans think Ben is. And you know what? I've been shitting on Bud for a while now about his making adjustments and all that. And one thing that I kind of realized afterwards is that one thing we got to give him credit for was that they started, whatever happened with Chris Paul, whether it's injury, whether it's fatigue, plus age, all of that, their plan essentially to pick up Chris Paul full court really changed kind of the complexion of the series. Because in game 1 and game 2, especially in game 1, Chris Paul had free reign to come up the court on his time, on his terms. They were just getting to him too late, and you just can't. You just can't allow that to happen. Game 2, they start being a little bit more aggressive, and from that point on, game 3, game 4, game 5, it's essentially just somebody chasing him full court. Whether it's Drew, yesterday was PJ Tucker on a lot of possessions, pick him up full court, make it difficult for him, get him tired, and it showed. All of his shots were short, even the ones he hit yesterday. And make no mistake, Chris Paul had a good game yesterday. People aren't going to remember it because for reasons, 1, they lost, and 2, because that game 4 is going to sting. You know what I mean? But had a good game yesterday. But even in those mid-range shots that he was hitting, if you noticed, I mean, I don't know how many of them in a row were shots that bounced off the front of the rim and bounced in because of a soft touch. A good touch, Gig has great touch, so they're bouncing and falling in. You know what I mean? As opposed to that, the way he was sticking it in the rim in game 1 and in all the series previous to that, I mean, they just made it difficult for him. They got him tired, and they didn't have the secondary playmaker to really make a difference. You know what I mean? Devin just isn't there yet. Devin isn't there yet, and he just isn't, like I said, he doesn't have the bag. You know what I mean? When you're just relying on making contested shots, that's kind of hard. That's a hard situation to rely on. You're relying on contested jump shots. So, yeah, you're going to end up having this situation where in game 6, the refs are swallowing their whistles a bit because it's the finals. Fouls are a little bit different here, which I don't agree, whatever. Is different here, and you're relying on contested shots that may have drawn ticky-tack fouls in the past, but they're not calling them shits now. And now you're having a more physical situation here, and guys are blocking your shit, making it more difficult for you. And it's credit to him because he was still scoring in game 3, game 4, game 5, back-to-back 40 points. First time ever anyone's lost both games on 40-point games in the finals, or lost back-to-back games when they scored 40 back, something like that. Fuck it. You know what I mean? And they're here defending. And Giannis, there was this dumbass post that the homie Vic sent me from some stupid asshole. I don't know if he's a stupid ass. I don't know him. I'm sorry. I don't know why I get so just immediately cursing people out. I got to do better. I got to do better. You know what I mean? I'm a better person than the person who was just immediately cursing somebody out. It won't be today though. This stupid asshole. No, I'm joking. This guy really thought he did something with this tweet. Tweeted something about, these guys are hoopers. Allen Iverson, Kyrie, Kobe Bryant, some other names. They're hoopers. Tim Duncan, Giannis, some other names. These guys are basketball players. And then went on to try to defend this nonsense. And in my, Steph Curry was on that list. And I'm like, okay, I see. So the winners are basketball players. And the guys who could get you a bucket, can score buckets but not win championships, those are your hoopers, right? Carmelo Anthony's a hooper. Can't win a championship though. And then he gives, because what's funny about it is you're giving credit to Kevin Durant as a hooper, and that's fine. But if you actually watch the finals games and you watch him play, it's the quote unquote basketball player side of him that wins. He's not, he can get you a bucket in isolation, but really his skill set is finding the easiest way to score. He's finding the easiest way to score, which isn't the hooper mentality, technically. This stupid-ass hooper mentality. The hooper mentality is, let me go create this most impossible shot and then drain it still. Kevin Durant isn't doing that. He can, but that's not actually what he wants to do. And when he wins, it's all the little things, because that's what it is to me. When I'm looking at the hooper, whatever the fuck he's talking about, it's the little things. And I'm not talking about Ben Simmons, because that motherfucker doesn't do little things. He don't do big things. It's the little things, right? It's the little things. But when you talk about Tim Duncan and Giannis, you're talking about guys who've had massive games in the playoffs and now in the finals. To say that these aren't whatever, but it's the little things. When you're watching this game yesterday, you're just seeing Giannis's imprint all over the game. The things I always talk about Joe. When Joe is spry, when he's healthy, when he's looking fresh, watch him on defense. Watch him on defense. Watch him affect every single thing on the basketball court. Watch him affect every little thing. That's what Giannis was doing yesterday, affecting everything on the basketball court. You can't switch on him. You can't do anything with him. Even Chris Paul hitting shots. I mean, Chris Paul hit a couple shots on Giannis that are breathtaking shots, man. To be clear, don't sit there and be like, Giannis ain't that good of a defender because Chris Paul hit these shots. No. Give Chris Paul his flowers for being able to hit impossible fucking shots on an incredible defender. That's really what it is. You're watching him do all the little things affect the game. And then when it comes down the stretch, one of the biggest buckets of the game, Giannis, the ultimate fucking leader, because he's already carried the team. He's already carried the team. And because he's already told you he believed in Chris Middleton. The rest of the world, me included, have shoved dirt on Chris Middleton's grave multiple times. And Chris just keeps coming back. I mean, this man won't die. He don't die. And here comes Giannis. I believe in Chris. All he did was say that all through the playoffs. I believe in Chris. I believe in Chris. And in one of the biggest moments, a little dribble handoff to a really crazy kind of contested fall-away jump shot that Chris hits in the annals of the game. When it's important right now, here goes Chris Middleton, delivers. Why? You see, because this was always the story. This will always be the argument against LeBron, unfortunately. Who did he make better? Right? That's always going to be the argument. Who did he make better? It seems like he can make role players better. So don't get me wrong. He can get role players open jump shots. If you can just cut, he's going to get you. You know what I mean? Get open, he got you. But of the good players, the players that had the potential to be great, which players did he make better? Every one of those players took steps back when they played him. Kevin Love took a step back when they played with him. D. Wade, Chris Bosh, they all took steps back when they played with him. They never recovered. They were better before him and worse after him somehow. That's kind of crazy. So a lot of people have just kind of accepted that. It's like, no, well, these are who these guys always were. Was it? Because Dwayne Wade was an MVP candidate before him. You know what I mean? Chris Bosh was one of the 12 best players in the league. He was in the Olympics. He was this guy. Everyone knew him. And then all of them take steps back once they play with him. And this is I'm not using this to slight LeBron. I'm not trying to slight him, but it's just bringing up what the conversation is, right? When you look at even Kobe, who did he make better? Well, Kobe for a long time didn't have anybody. And then Paul Gasol, he did make better. And it was different because this was a little bit more nuanced. Paul Gasol was putting up bigger numbers when he played for Memphis. You know what I mean? He was putting up bigger numbers when he played for Memphis. He came to the Lakers, he put up lower numbers. However, Kobe was able, after their first finals when they lost to the Celtics, he got into Paul's ass. And a lot of this is luck, because to be clear, a lot of this is luck. It's about finding the personality that's going to feed off of you, right? Because ultimately, if MJ never meets Scottie, he may never make a Scottie unless he meets somebody else with a similar personality who can be guided and then stab him in the back 20 years later, right? But at the time, can be guided, like whatever. Scottie's a little bit insane. I'm going to be honest. He's a little bit insane. I'm a little bit insane. I recognize insanity. And because of that, he made Scottie better. Isaiah Thomas, he made Joe Dumars better. He made everyone on that team better. Magic made everyone on that team better. You know what I mean? Kareem was already established, but James Worthy probably made, who knows? Can't say it without Magic, but you just feel like James Worthy isn't James Worthy without Magic. Kevin McHale isn't Kevin McHale without Larry Bird there. You know what I mean? Who does LeBron make better? And that'll always be a question. That's always going to be a question in these debates. You know what I mean? Unless you don't give a fuck about that. And then I would argue you're wrong for not caring about that, because I think that's part of this conversation. When you're a great leader, who do you make better? Chris Paul, everywhere he's gone, even though people have disliked him in a lot of places, you can't really argue with the results and the numbers. He makes teams better. He makes players better. Blake Griffin was a better player after Chris than he was before Chris, and better player during and after Chris than he was before. Before Chris, he was just a guy who put up numbers and dunked. Then all of a sudden, you have Point Blank a few years into the relationship. James Harden is really the only one that you can't really argue, because James already was what he was. You know what I mean? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander got better, credited Chris Paul. Dennis Schroeder got better, made himself wanted by the championship team. Why? Because of Chris Paul. DeAndre Ayton's been blowing Chris Paul for the last 6 months. Devin Booker, same thing. Yeah, Chris Paul makes guys better. When you look at Giannis, who does he make better? Well, you're seeing it. You're watching him. He made Chris Middleton better because he believed in Chris. When, I've always talked about this. I remember in my professional LA Fitness basketball days, there was this dude I used to play against all the time. Now, this dude was better than me. You know what I mean? He was 6'5", taller than me, faster than me, stronger than me. Just everything more than me, essentially. Not funnier than me. Maybe better looking. Not funnier, though. Very few people are. Anyway, and I remember I used to hate it. When we would play on Sundays, everyone would look to me and him and say, "You guys go Caps." And after a while, the thing is, I'm competitive, so I don't give a fuck. Fine, I'll go captain. But I would argue, because I'm a human being, right? So on one side, there's this competitive nature side, which is I'm not going to back down from any threat or any competition, right? Any challenge, I'm not backing down from it. But then there's a logical human being side that I would be like, hey, I know because we're the same height, you're making us, but we're not equals. We're not equals on the basketball court. You know what I mean? Making us each go captains is kind of making it difficult for my team to ever win. Why don't you pick this guy over here? Yeah, he's not his height, but he's a better basketball player than I am. He actually affects the game a little bit more than I do. You know what I mean? These two should go captain, even though they're different heights, but whatever. The point being, I would always lose against him. And it would drive me fucking crazy because we all pulled from the same teammates. Week after week, we're playing against each other. We're all picking from the same pool of teammates. And this week I have this guy and he's on my team. And because he doesn't see me as the best basketball player, it's almost like my belief in him or my relying on him doesn't mean anything to him. So he's bricking shots. Then the next game, he's on his team. And because he's the best basketball player, it's this fucking confidence. And all of a sudden, this guy's draining shots. He's hitting crossovers. He's doing shit that don't even make any sense because there's no pressure. There's no pressure on him anymore, right? And so when you have the best basketball player on the floor believing in you, that means a lot. You know what I mean? Not only when he says it, but when he shows it. And he showed it mad times. He showed being a great teammate mad times. You got to give Giannis his credit. I mean, everything he deserves, as much as I wish. I've never, if Chris Paul lost his championship to the Nets, I would have been mad because fuck that Nets team. Y'all stacked the odds and you built a super team to win this championship. Fuck that. This is bullshit. Chris Paul losing it to somebody who essentially yesterday really just said, I could have went to a super team, but this is the hard way to do it, and this is the way I wanted to do it. for all of you, because there's this weird game that's getting played, right? Especially because of Kevin Durant, because he's influential to an extent. A lot of these players have essentially convinced people that super teams don't exist when they go join a super team. Man, it's not really true. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. Okay. But now you have a word from the mouth of a player who said, I could have went to a super team, but this was the hard way to do it. This is the argument I've always been making. This is the hard way to do it, to grow a team. And I'm not going to even mention LeBron because I've already given LeBron a pass for Cleveland. Cleveland was fucking that up the whole time. They just couldn't find anyone to get near him that would help. You know what I mean? I'll give him credit for that. Really what bothered me was when he left the Heat. That's what bothered me. You have a good front office here now. Trust them to build something for you, around you, here. Maybe not no super team material, but finding young guys who can be good. Maybe you can make these guys better, but whatever. This was the hard way to do it. This was the way I wanted to do it. It's clear as day. So all the argument we've all ever been making, it's clear as day. Super teams suck. It's fucking corny. And, you know, it's funny because my homie Vic asked me the other day, I wonder why people seem to not give Giannis his credit like other players. And I had kind of theorized that I think that there's a weird thing with foreign players here. It just, maybe they're not because they're not in these AAU tournaments with these guys. They don't come up together and they're kind of like the outsiders of this situation. You know what I mean? And I think that might be partly true. But now I think after yesterday, what Giannis said, you're kind of seeing maybe why. Because he's like, nah, I'm not going to do that because that's bitch shit. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And listen, all that is hindsight, right? Because Dame has been saying that, but now Dame is older. The clock is ticking. He wants to win a championship. And now we're going to essentially, litigate what happens to him, what his career path is based on what team he ends up with, right? Because if he ends up on a super team somehow ends up on the Sixers with Joel and Paul George, or ends up on the Clippers somehow with Paul George and Kawhi, or somehow makes it to the Lakers with AD and LeBron without them having to give up AD, it's going to be a completely different story than what we felt about him with the Blazers. You see, because I don't see there's anything wrong with him. He doesn't feel like they can build him a team. Now, he's kind of went on record and said he's not leaving, but just in case. See, and at one point, there's a point where I had said this previously. KD and Kyrie, I was cool with that. I didn't feel no super team. I was just like, you just got two really good players. Two good players building something, leading these guys into the charge. Let's do it. Your two best against my two best, and let's see what happens. KD and Kyrie versus and Joe against Giannis and Chris Middleton, against Joker and Jamal Murray, against LeBron and AD, against Dame and CJ, against whatever, Jalen and Jason Tatum, against Russ and Bradley Beal, the two-man group, right? There's nothing that makes sense to me. But no, now you want to go ahead and go bring in the third MVP. Now you've built a super team, and that's corny. That's lame to me. So if we end up giving Ben Simmons in some sort of package for Dame, and it's Dame, Joe, and Toby, I'm invested there. That makes sense. That's a big two with a third guy who wears long sleeve jackets and shorts. It's game 7. Sorry. I'm invested there. So you got to give credit to Giannis. Sixers fans, give credit to Giannis. One, we are a long way from Joel scoring 50 points in the finals game. Let's understand that, please. And I'm not saying that Joe doesn't have the ability, but Joe has things to learn. Because you know what? Even I got caught up after game 7. He throws Ben under the bus. And on my perspective, because I couldn't wait to drive the bus over him, I was cool with it. But the truth of the matter is, in retrospect, looking back at it, I'm not cool with that. I don't like that. Your best player shouldn't do that. Your best player can do that in private to the coach. When you're at the exit interviews for the season, Doc, man, listen, I'll be honest with you, man. Ben doing that shit really made me miserable. But to go on national TV and throw him under the bus, yeah, I don't completely agree with that. I never will. It's never how I do things. That's not leading. Joe has some things to learn in terms of the leadership department. I think he learned some stuff this year. Hopefully he continues to learn. You got to invest in your teammates, into their belief, It might be too late for Ben. Ben is his own thing. Not to say that investing in Ben as a teammate would work, but you're going to have to. That's what sacrifices is. That's what making sacrifices is. Maybe the sacrifice is, Ben, let's work out together. Let's work out together. Let me encourage you. Let me be there. I'm the best player on this team. Let me fucking encourage you. Let me show you why I'm the best player, and let me encourage you to be better than you are. Maybe that's the move. I don't know. It's kind of a disconnect between those two guys. There wasn't a disconnect between Jimmy and Joe. That would have worked out great probably. But whatever. Fuck Jimmy. So I don't know. You got to give Giannis credit. All credit to the Bucks. I mean, what Giannis did yesterday was historic. What he's done all series is historic. I mean, this man is gassed. It's clear. It's pretty clear to me, I think. I think it's clear to me. You know, one thing, obviously I'm a big Bill Simmons fan. I've mentioned that a million times. And he had mentioned this on a previous podcast. Has anyone understand about Giannis and the dry heaving? Seems like he's so damn exhausted. And it's weird to me that he brings that up without bringing up that Bill Russell used to throw up before every big game. Bill Russell was known for throwing up. And I always found that interesting because, you know, we're Eagles fans. We shit on McNabb for throwing up. If that game goes differently, right? If we win that game, him throwing up becomes a mythological story of greatness. He threw up because he wanted it so badly, and then he won the game for us. But because it goes the other way, it becomes he's a choke artist, right? Bill Russell throws up before every big game, but because they're winning, it doesn't matter. And Giannis kind of seems the same way. Yeah, he wants this so fucking badly. He can barely control his bodily functions. He's exhausted. He looks dead tired out there. And because I mentioned this on the other podcast, but I didn't expound on this because it drives me crazy. No one is talking about Giannis being out of shape, but if you see Joe doing the exact same thing, mind you, go back and watch the games of this playoffs that Joe played in, especially after the injury. Watch him doing everything on defense. And tell me why he wouldn't be fucking tired. If you can give Giannis the pass, you kind of got to give Joe the pass. I don't care that Joe has the history, but be equal. Keep the same energy. As me and the homie Fred always say, keep the same energy. Be equal. So, but he wants it so fucking bad. He cares so much. He cares more about everyone else on the court. That's a skill set. That's a skill set, not a hooper. Of course he's a hooper. To me, that's definition of hooper isn't that. Because the truth of the matter is, if you watch any of these guys play, and I always say this, right? Because when I play basketball, you know, I love playing roughhouse, right? Or 21 to some of y'all. Why? Because I get to express my one-on-one ability that I never get to express in the game, like perimeter one-on-one things, you know, dribble moves, step back, jump shots, driving, hesitations, all this shit that I never really get to display in a 5-on-5 environment, because in a 5-on-5 environment, I'm more relegated to being a Tim Duncan type trying to play or backing people down in the post, spotting up and shooting, taking one or two dribbles and trying to finish at the rim. There's no one-on-one game that's really happening. Not that I can't, but I don't do it, right? A lot of these guys can do all of the things that all the other guys do. The difference is that these guys have gotten so good at doing it and have practiced it so much that they feel comfortable doing it in traffic in a 5-on-5 game. And that's impressive. Trust me, it's impressive. But a lot of these guys have the skill set that you don't realize. That's why that's why NBA Twitter is always caught off guard when they're watching Dwight Howard throw an underhand ball from the other side into the rim. That's why they're always confused. That's why they're confused when they're watching Dwight Howard draining three-pointers, right? Because outside of the pressure of an NBA game, everyone can do almost what everyone else can do. You'll watch big men with all types of dribble moves. They're just never going to display it on a 5-on-5 NBA game because it's not their best thing. It's not the thing that they should be doing, right? So acting like these guys aren't, this all nonsense. To me, what a hooper is somebody who the result of the basketball game to them matters more than everyone else. They're going to do everything they fucking can in their power to get that. So you're not going to tell me that Giannis isn't a hooper. That man would die before he lost. And he's lost games and he's still alive, obviously. But the point is, he's going to stake his life on a game, on winning the game. AI was the same thing. The difference, what separates AI from the other guys, somewhat to his credit, but also to his detriment, is that he didn't do any of the work, the necessary work, to outlive his peers. You know what? I always said that watching the end of Ray Allen's career and the end of Paul Pierce's career, and to think that AI's career was over 5-6 years before theirs. Watching Dirk winning in the twilight of his career, win a championship. Tim Duncan still competing in the twilight of his career. And AI is nowhere to be found because he didn't do that work physically and just never could find that way. But on that basketball court, AI cared more than everyone else, and he was the smallest fucking guy on the court, and he was the biggest motherfucker on the court, right? Yeah, he's a hooper, but that one-on-one shit don't mean anything. That don't mean nothing. Joe Johnson, so I guess Joe Johnson is a hooper. He's a elite one-on-one scorer. He ain't one dick, so I guess he's a hooper then. Whatever you want. Come on. It's ridiculous. Giannis is a fucking hooper. And right now, as of today, he might be the best hooper on the fucking planet. And you can make that argument. You know what I mean? You almost have to make the argument. I know every year we do this. We get into the finals, and whoever wins that finals, we say, man, this is the best guy, and this is the best player on the planet. And we just said Kevin Durant is maybe the best player on the planet, right? And we always forget. And then all that happens is LeBron comes into the next year and shows why he's the best player on the planet. And it's fair. You don't want to give Giannis the credit. But what we just saw Giannis do is superhuman, though. And that's why it's different. Kawhi did the same thing. Kawhi deserved to be there. We're not going to sit here and act like he didn't. That motherfucker, I mentioned this. I think for the last 55 playoff games, he's averaging like 38 points a game. It's something ridiculous in his last 55 playoff games. Is done quietly and with an awkward laugh and with him not telling his teammates when he's injured and very weird. But motherfuck, that dude is incredible. Stop it. What Giannis just did, incredible. Watch him on defense. Watch him affect the game on every possession defensively. It's incredible. Good for them. Good for them. Good for the city of Milwaukee. Good for that Bucks franchise. Good for Jrue Holiday. But big fan of Jrue Holiday. And, obviously he had some rough games in the finals. He had a rough game again last night. Offensively, at least he keeps shooting. At least you can have him on the court at the end of the game to hit free throws if need be. At least he can spread the floor a little bit. And at least he's a good defender. I mean, incredible defense is just essentially, hey, he's going off, cool him off real quick. I mean, it's no surprise that Jrue is guarding Chris Paul. Chris Paul has a couple bad games. They say, hey, Jrue, all right, it's time to cool off Devin. Devin has a bad game yesterday, and Jrue scores more points. I don't think that's really a surprise. So that's it. We'll see what happens with the Suns. I mean, listen, they got young guys, and they don't have a ton of time because obviously Chris Paul is at the end of his career, but they got young guys. And if those guys took a leap from last year to this year, and if they take another leap from this year to next year, watch out. They could be back, or maybe it's a fluke. I don't know. I don't know. Let's see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not a fluke because if Chris Paul's on the team, it usually isn't a fluke. And that he's proven that already. This is his first final, sure, but he makes teams better. He just does. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to relitigate, obviously, all the ideas of Chris Paul making top 20 all time and all that. Yeah, you're going to have to back that off now. You know what I mean? After the first two games, it seemed like he was making an argument, and then everything went south for whatever reason, whether it's fatigue or whatever it is, it went south and, it's a shame. This was his best shot. I don't know if he'll ever get a shot this great. Still my favorite point guard. I don't really give a shit. And one thing, while he lost to the guys who've never really watched Chris Paul to understand why Chris Paul was great, hopefully over these playoffs, you've seen it. Game 6, the closeout game against the Clippers. I mean, you saw a motherfucker just the smallest man on the court absolutely demolished the other team. Game 1 of this year's, you saw him demolish the Bucks single-handedly. So hopefully you have some context on why I love Chris Paul. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's it. Congratulations to the Bucks. Congratulations to Giannis. Giannis, I don't even know what to make of his career. Yeah, I think it's still too early. I mean, obviously, he'll walk into the Hall of Fame. If he stopped playing today, he walks into the Hall of Fame. He's a 2-time MVP, finals MVP, 50 points in a fucking closeout finals game. That motherfucker walking into the Hall of Fame today. You know what I mean? If Mitch Richmond could walk into the Hall of Fame, Giannis could have walked into the Hall of Fame 3 goddamn years ago. Credit to him. You know what I mean? Credit to him. To think that when he dunked on Ben Simmons, I took Ben's side when he called him a fucking baby. You know what I mean? I feel ashamed. But I'm a loyal dude. So you know what I mean? I've died with Ben Simmons. And I'm out of the contract of loyalty to Ben Simmons because I've died with him already this year. So that's it, everyone. Wash your hands. You know the drill. Stay safe. I'll be doing more other podcasts. I think I'm going to get back into the flow of things. So, keep an eye out. Again, Analogical. Watch it out. Coming soon. It's going to be the new podcast where I talk about, I'm really dead ass. I was trying to find a way to talk about like philosophical share, some of my views on things, like a more metaphysical way. And I think that'll be the name of the podcast. Like, really? So that's it, everybody. Wash your hands. Stay safe. Black Lives Matter. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. Stop Asian hate. Stop all hate. Get vaccinated, please. We're fucked again. I mean, the Delta variant's flying coast to coast, killing us. It's just gonna ruin us. The deer park yesterday. 65,000 people. Just a breeding ground of disgust. Look like Sodom from Sodom and Gomorrah. Christ have, I mean, that's kind of crazy. That's crazy. I mean, the story of Sodom and that's crazy. I'm sorry. That's wild. You don't look like that, Deer Park. I apologize. Everyone stay safe. Take care.
Yeah. Yeah. Justice for the blind. Just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my mind. Used to come